And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to be making something that is absolutely delicious. And I bet many of you have heard of it, but you've never made it. It's called Hoppin John. It's a classic Southern dish. It's actually a complete protein for your body to absorb because we're going to mix some black-eyed peas, we're going to mix that with some rice, and we're going to add in some other things, but those two, beans and rice together, make up a complete protein for you, so it's very healthy and very good. To go alongside that, we're going to have a spiced up okra. Another thing I bet many of you have never tried, and you think you don't like it, but you're wrong. It's absolutely delicious. And then for dessert, we're going to have one of my favorite things, and that's a crisp. Only today, we're going to make it with peaches. It couldn't be easier. This whole meal is simple and easy, and you can do it in any afternoon, any of your busiest weekday. You can come home and have this on the table in 30-45 minutes. So let's get started. I've got my oven preheated to 400 degrees. Now actually the dessert takes the longest, so we're gonna start with it. Now I have 1 stick of butter that I have already cut into little small cubes, and I don't have a pastry blender right here, so what I'm gonna do is put about a half a cup of just the instant oatmeal, you know, that you buy in the cereal department, and I am making a mess here. About half a cup or so, however much you like in your, in yours. I actually like a lot of oatmeal. Forgive me, I'm making a mess, so I'm just gonna use my fingers. They're clean, I just washed my hands. I'm gonna put that in my food processor because I don't have a little pastry blender here. So if you have a little pastry blender at home, you know, the little thing that you cut in butter, just use that. But I don't have that, so I'm gonna do this in stages because this is small. And we're just gonna incorporate the butter into the oats, and we're actually gonna make the oats a little finer. So bear with me, this is a little loud. And I'll show you what it looks like in just a second. You don't wanna process it till it's like flour, but I'll show you what I mean here. You see how the butter just kind of gets incorporated into the oats, and then it gets to be little smaller pieces of oatmeal. That's what you're looking for. Let's do this last little bit. Now this is one of those things that you could use any kind of fruit that you like. Now traditionally, you may have had this cooked with apples, and an apple crisp is fabulous. But sometimes I want to just mix things up a little bit and use something a little different. So today, I'm using just canned peaches. I'm sorry, I know it's loud. Okay, that's it. You really just kind of want to chop that butter up. That's the whole point of this. You could use your fingers to do it even if you wanted to, but it's just a little easier to have the little bowl of a food processor. But like I said, today we're just simply gonna be using some canned peaches. It's absolutely delicious. Now, to this, we wanna add half a cup of flour. I pretty much always use all-purpose flours. Very rarely do I ever use self-rising. So when I say flour, I mean all-purpose. And a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of brown sugar. I make all kinds of crisps. I make apple crisps, I make blueberry, I've mixed strawberries and raspberries, I've mixed blueberries and strawberries, any fruit combination you can think of, it's all delicious. I'm adding about a teaspoon of cinnamon and about half a teaspoon of salt. Yes, you do need salt in your sweet dishes. You need the savory and the sweet together. Salt brings out the flavors of the other thing. Now just take a fork or your fingers, whichever you want to do, and mix that together. You could add nuts to this if you wanted to. You could add about half a cup of chopped walnuts or pecans or almonds or whatever your favorite nut is, whatever you like would be fine. But today I'm gonna leave those out. Now, I have just 1 can of drained, I like the ones in heavy syrup, but you get the ones that you like. Drained peaches, simple. If you had some frozen blueberries, you could sprinkle some blueberries over that, would be delicious too. I drained off most of the juice off of the peaches, and then you want to take your topping and just put it over top of the peaches. Now, breaking up any extra big pieces of butter that you see. And that's it. Now, how easy is that? Anybody can make a homemade dessert in a matter of just a few seconds. Now, this needs to go into the oven, 350 to 400 degrees, whatever you've got your oven set at. It needs to go in the oven, and it needs to bake for about 30 to 40 minutes until the top is just golden and it's bubbling. The juices from the fruit are just bubbling up. So we're gonna get this in the oven, and then we're gonna start on the Hoppin John. All right, now our peach crisp is baking away in the oven. In just a few minutes, the house is gonna smell fabulous. We're gonna get started on our meal. Now, to go along with our Hoppin John, we're gonna make a creole okra with just a couple of little extra ingredients. And we're gonna start with about 4 slices of bacon. If you don't want to use the bacon, you don't have to, but it just adds an extra smoky flavor to it, and it's delicious. But I know some people don't eat bacon, so that's if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You could use turkey bacon. If you like turkey bacon, by all means, add the turkey bacon. But you want to render out the fat of the bacon in a pot. I just have a small little pot here. And any time that I'm using bacon as an ingredient in a dish, if you'll notice, I chop it ahead of time before I cook it. If I'm cooking bacon just to eat, I had a lady stop me the other day, and she was talking about the baking of the bacon like I do. If I'm making bacon like for breakfast or something like that, I'll tell you, you try this, you'll never fry it again. Just lay it on a baking sheet, put it in the oven for at about 400 degrees, and let it just bake slow. Oh, it's fabulous. It stays flat, and your kitchen does not make a mess. You don't have all that grease to pick up. And I never cook bacon in a skillet anymore for breakfast or something like that. I always do it in the oven. It's just so much easier and cleaner. Now, I'm using, because it's not seasoned for okra. If you have fresh okra, use fresh okra. I'm using frozen, which I keep in my freezer at home all the time because I love it. Now, this is the way I like it. This is what okra looks like. If you've never had okra, this is a whole pod of okra. Sometimes you will see it cut up into pieces. For this dish, I like the whole okra, but if you only have the cut up, you by all means can use that. You want to cook it a little less because it's already, smaller pieces. But it is delicious, it's healthy, and I'm gonna mix it with some tomatoes and things like that, and it's fabulous. If you've never tried it, please do try it and learn to like a different variety of vegetables. Some people think it's slimy and it just doesn't taste good, and if you cook it properly, it is not, and it's absolutely delicious. So we're using 1 16-ounce bag of just frozen okra. I'm gonna take a quick break and let that bacon keep cooking, and when I come back, we're gonna wrap this up and start on the Hoppin John. I'll be back with you in a minute. right, now our bacon is cooking, our peach crisp is in the oven. To our okra dish, we're gonna add half of an onion, because this is kind of a big onion, so I'm gonna use half in this and half in our Hoppin John. So we're gonna cut this up. You wanna dice it kind of fine. Just cut up an onion. This is one of those dishes, if you have in your freezer frozen onions, and I do that sometimes. Here's a little hint for you. If you're cooking something and maybe you only need half an onion, go ahead and chop up the whole onion and put the other half in your freezer in a little Ziploc bag, and then when you're cooking a dish like this and you just need a little onion, you've got it prepped ahead. I do that all the time at home. I have little bags of onions or half bags of corn or something like that in my freezer at home to keep for times when I need it. All right, now our bacon is just crisping along. I'm gonna add this onion to my bacon. I don't think anything smells better than bacon and onions cooking. Just smells so, so good. You don't need to add any oil to this because of course, the bacon has rendered out some of its fat. But if you're not using bacon, or maybe you're using turkey bacon, which is a whole lot leaner, then you would want to add maybe a teaspoon of like vegetable oil or canola oil. I wouldn't use olive oil because it really adds a flavor that you don't want in this particular dish. I do use a lot of olive oil, but not in this dish. Now, to our onions and our bacon, we're gonna add our okra. I have 1 can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. That's kind of the new tomato product on the market, and I'm telling you, if you have not tried it, you need to try the fire roasted diced tomatoes. See the little black flecks on there? That's the charred skin off of the tomato. They are absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious. A whole nother kind of flavor than just chopped tomatoes. But if you don't have the fire roasted diced tomato, feel free to use just, you know, the 14-ounce can of whatever kind of tomatoes that you have. But please do try the fire roasted. And then our next ingredient is gonna be Creole seasoning. Now, Creole seasoning is made up usually, depending on the blend, of salt, red pepper, the crushed red pepper, black pepper, probably some granulated garlic or garlic powder and maybe a little onion powder, all mixed up together. A wonderful little spice blend to have in your cabinet. If you don't have any, mix just a little bit of salt with a little bit of crushed red pepper flakes or ground up red pepper if you have that, with a little bit of the garlic powder and some black pepper, and you'll kind of, you know, have the same flavors in there. You really just the thing you really want to have in there is that crushed red pepper, because that adds the flavor to the dish. But I always have the Creole seasoning because I find it very good on like a broiled chicken breast. If you want to just cook a chicken breast, you can sprinkle this over it. And we've made dishes with it before on this show. And then the last thing we're going to add is just some frozen corn. Again, if it is season for fresh corn and okra, use fresh. But I do find that year-round frozen is perfectly fine to have as a substitute instead of the fresh. And it's not season for it right now, so I'm using frozen, about a cup. You know, give or take. This is not one of those recipes that's an exact science. If you really like corn, add more. If you don't like corn, leave it out. But it just adds a different flavor, a different texture to the corn. If you're making this dish in the summer, when corn's in season, let me tell you, I'd put that corn on the grill or in the oven and get it roasted, but it's fabulous on a grill, and then cut it off, and it adds another layer of flavor like the fire roasted tomatoes. So this is crisped up enough. Let's add our corn. Let's turn down our heat just a little. Add our Creole seasoning, about a teaspoon or so. Our okra. Now remember, this is frozen, so I don't think I'm gonna need to add any water. But if you were using fresh, you would make sure you would wanna add about half a cup of water. I'm gonna see, depending on how juicy my tomatoes look. Turn it down, stir it up. And I need to have a little spoon here. Stir it up in there. And I believe I do. One of my tomatoes went over. Let's add just a touch of water because I just want to steam and cook that okra through, and the corn is really all you're doing. About half a cup or so will be fine. And then just put the lid on that and let that simmer for about 10 minutes or so, and it'll be done, and it'll be delicious to go along with your Hoppin John. Now, let's get on to the main course here. Hoppin John. Let me get my oven preheated. Again, we're going to use the other half of the onion that we had. We put half in our okra, and we're going to put the other half in our Hoppin John. And I don't know where the name came from. It's just one of those names that I don't have a clue how they came up with Hoppin John, but it's delicious. Traditionally, it's made with black-eyed peas and rice. Now, you want to be cooking separate from this some rice, just plain white steamed rice. I'm just going to use the boil-in-the-bag white rice, the instant converted rice that you can get anywhere, and that's what I'm using. We're just going to make about 4 cups or so of rice because I really like rice. So have that cooking and ready to go when this is done. A couple of teaspoons of canola oil in the bottom of your pan, and then we're going to add our onion. We're going to saute the onion until it's softened. Good basis for any recipe. Now back to the okra for just a second. If you'll notice, I did not add any salt. That's because that Creole seasoning blend that I have has salt in it. If you're not using a prepackaged up Creole seasoning, you will want to make sure that you add just a little bit of salt to that. Now, we're going to let this kind of be softening. We're going to add about half of this green pepper because it's huge. If you've got a little green pepper, then you would want to add probably, maybe the whole thing. But this is a big green pepper. And if you're one of those people that do not like green peppers, again, these recipes are designed to custom blend to your likes. You want to kind of dice it to be about the same as the onion. I happen to adore green pepper. And now in the grocery stores, in the freezer department, there's a blend that you can buy already frozen and chopped up of peppers and onions, just different little frozen blends of chopped up starters, so to speak, as they call them in the grocery store. Look for those in your freezer department and keep that in your freezer. Perfectly fine in this dish to use the frozen pepper and onion blend. Would be delicious. We're going to add this to our onions. I'm full of dropping today. I just keep dropping everything. I think we all have those days, don't we, where we just drop things. All right, we're going to let that saute. Now, the next ingredient that I'm going to add, when I first did this recipe, was a long time ago, and I do not know the answer to this question. Say that before we start. I don't know why red peppers are so expensive, because they're just matured green peppers, but they are. I'm not willing to pay $2 a pepper for one pepper, so I keep in my pantry roasted red peppers in the jar for purposes just like this. This particular ingredient is totally optional. If you don't want to add the roasted red pepper, then you don't have to. We're gonna go to a quick break. I'm just gonna keep sauteing this. I'm gonna dice up this pepper, and when I come back, we're gonna put this whole meal together. I'll be back with you in just a minute. And welcome back. Now we're wrapping up our meal. I'm just going to add this jarred roasted red pepper to my Hoppin John. Now again, if you have a garden and you have fresh peppers, use a fresh red pepper, but they just are too pricey, and I just can't do it. So I love the roasted jarred red peppers, so that's why I'm using this as a substitute. So, but if you want to use a fresh red pepper, delicious. Go ahead, right ahead. You'd want to saute it when you do the green. You could use red instead of green, or you could just leave it out, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. Stir that in. Look how pretty that looks. You know, I had a meeting the other day with some folks. One lady is a dietitian, and we were talking about the fact that truly we eat with our eyes first. And if something looks good to you, if the colors are appealing and it looks good, you're more likely to enjoy it. So I use any opportunity I can to bring in extra colors, extra flavors, extra textures to make it look pretty. And that's what you need to do at home with your family, is just to bring in those extra little special touches that make your dishes unique. Now, to my Hoppin John, I add ham. If you have cooked a holiday ham and you've got a pile of it left over, perfect opportunity to use it up. Instead of the traditional ham sandwich, there's nothing wrong with that, I do it. But here's another use, because I find when I cook ham, I always have a ton of leftovers. This is a perfect use for it. If you haven't cooked a ham, you can go to any grocery store, and in the meat section, they will always sell ham steaks, or some even have diced up ham ready to go for you. I've seen that in the grocery stores too. You want about a cup, give or take. So I just bought what they call 2 little ham steaks this morning, and I'm just adding it. I'm gonna add it to my Hoppin John because it adds a smokiness and flavor to it. But if you don't eat ham, you don't want to use it, then don't put it in there. That's perfectly fine. I love it. So I'm adding it. Cube it up about the size of your peppers and onions. It's already cooked. You just are really warming it through. Now, we're going to add hot sauce. How much is up to you? I like hot sauce. I like spicy food. So I'm adding about a teaspoon. But you add however much that you and your family like. But you do want to have a little bit of heat in there. And then 2 cans of drained black-eyed peas. You could use frozen if you wanted to. And just add that to the dish. And about a half a cup, a fourth to a half a cup of just chicken broth. And I am going to add a little bit of salt, just a good pinch of salt, and some fresh cracked pepper. You're going to stir this together, and you're going to let it simmer for about 10 minutes covered. And then we're going to serve it with some white rice, and it will be absolutely delicious. And again, when you mix beans with rice, you've heard the dish red beans and rice. When you mix beans and rice together, it becomes a perfect, complete protein for your body. So it's a very, very healthy thing for you and your family to eat. Now, doesn't that look delicious? We're just going to kind of let this simmer for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to serve it up. All right, now the best part of the day we get to eat. Here's our peach crisp. It has come out of the oven. It's very, very hot, very, very good. And I'll tell you, that right there with a scoop of vanilla ice cream or some sweetened whipped cream or, something along those lines, or both, would be delicious. So there's our wonderful little peach crisp. It is delicious. It's very hot. That's what you want it to look like, just kind of golden brown all over. Now, our Hoppin John is done, and look at that. It is so pretty and so good. And like I said, all I did was just cook some white rice, just plain, the kind of rice that you boil in the bag. You know what I'm talking about at the store, just plain converted rice, just in boiling water for 10 minutes, and always just kind of cover it with a towel to sort of let it steam. And then you want to take your Hoppin John, which is our ham, our black-eyed peas, and the green pepper and the onion and the red pepper, and you want to spoon that over top of your rice. Now, does that not look delicious? I cannot wait to eat this food. And then, of course, we can't forget our okra, our Creole style okra with some corn and some tomatoes, our fire roasted tomatoes. Absolutely delicious to go alongside of our Hoppin John. You've got a complete meal right there. You don't need any bread because you've got your rice. You've got your Hoppin John, which is your complete protein, your wonderful little side dish of your okra with we started out with bacon, rendered some bacon and crisped it up, and then added some onions, some corn, and some fire roasted diced tomatoes, and a bag of frozen whole okra. You could use the cut up kind if you wanted to. And then some Creole seasoning, which is salt and a little bit of pepper, garlic powder, and crushed red pepper, or the ground red pepper, either one, mixed up together. I buy the Creole already mixed, but if you want to make your own, that's fine. Then to go along with it, our wonderful dessert, our peach crisp. Try these recipes. Let me know what you think. In the Hoppin John, by the way, maybe you don't like black-eyed peas. If you wanted to substitute any kind of bean in that you wanted to, you could. You could use navy beans, you could use pinto beans, kidney beans, cannellini beans, any kind of bean that your family likes would be delicious in there, or any combination thereof. The purpose of recipes is to give you the springboard, so to speak, to where you can take it and customize it to your family's preference. Try the recipes, let me know what you think. Thank you for joining with me, and I'll see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna. P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.